Behind me is the Rep Fitness PR-5000 Power Rack in a 4-post configuration with the Aries 2.0 attachment installed onto it. I was able to put the entire thing together by myself, and in this video I want to share with you some of the tips and tricks and kind of highlight of the install that I discovered in case you are doing something similar, trying to attempt to put this thing together for yourself. First things first, I want to talk about the shipment process if you haven't made your order yet, or if you haven't received some or any of the parts of the Power Rack or Aries yet. For my personal situation, I apparently ordered my Power Rack at a very popular time because the rack and Aries was back ordered for some time and I didn't get my entire order, or at least all of it, for about a month or two. So it made the installation process a little bit weird because I could only do some parts of it at a time. In terms of the packages and shipment itself, a lot of the smaller stuff was shipped via FedEx, and of course that could be different for you. And the larger stuff, like the weight plates and the actual Aries 2.0 attachment, that came via a freight truck, a box truck that came to my house and delivered an entire pallet. Now this is my first problem with ordering from Rep because the pallet shipping wasn't that great for my personal situation. Now again, Rep ships the Aries 2.0 in a big wooden box on a pallet. And the problem with this in my situation was that, of course, like if you've ever seen a pallet, there's wooden feet. Essentially, they're built by plywood. And what Rep didn't do was they made the feet on the two edges of this wooden box, but nothing to support the center. So the entire box kind of caved in and everything fell off. This was a big problem because once the package actually arrived at my driveway, there was no way for the delivery person to actually get that pallet off of the truck. So me and him had to physically climb onto the truck, pick out the individual items and bring it into my garage. And obviously that's not exactly ideal and can be fixed very easily by just, again, reinforcing the bottom of the pallet. But of course, I'm not saying that's going to happen to you. I'm just explaining my situation. It might have been a fluke, but I have seen similar situations via Reddit posts where people are complaining about the Aries 2.0 shipment. Now, once your entire shipment arrives, I would recommend for you to go through the boxes and make sure that everything is there. And that could be a little bit difficult, obviously, because of just the sheer number of parts that come to make up this entire build. But I'm just recommending that because in my situation, I had a few carabiners missing. Obviously, that's not too big of a deal because I can put the entire rack together and the carabiners just hold the attachments together. But if you find that you are missing some parts, you can contact Rep and get replacements. For me, the bigger problem in my shipment was that the actual weight plates of the Aries 2.0, essentially all of them were rusted out. So that was something that I had to deal with Rep, and at the end of the day, they were able to make the situation right. So I'm not really complaining about that. I'm more so just letting you know that in my personal situation, a good amount of the parts of this rack and Aries 2.0 attachment did come a little bit damaged, cosmetically, scratches, chips here and there. So the packaging wasn't all that great in my opinion. Now moving on to the actual install process itself. This was a little bit annoying because right off the bat, there's no physical manual. The entire thing, you have to scan a QR code, which leads you to a website where you can see a digital version of the manual. And obviously that's just inconvenient because whenever you buy other weirdly smaller stuff with Rep that's like really straightforward to put together, I'm drawing a blank right now, but some of the stuff like the wall mounted weight plates, which is, it's 2 bolts mounted into your wall. It's not really much that you need instructions for, and that comes with an instruction, whereas arguably one of the hardest installs of all the Rep products doesn't come with a physical manual. So you're sitting there on your phone, just hoping that your battery doesn't die, and you're scrolling, zooming in and out on these tiny pictures. Or if you have a laptop, an iPad or something, that is a little bit easier. But again, it's just inconvenient to have a digital only manual at the time of my installation. So get ready for that. Another problem that I had with the digital manual is that some of the labels in terms of the titles or the names of the items in the manual was different from what the actual boxes labeled them as. So things didn't match up, and that again is just inconvenient and just added time to the actual install. And some of the pictures, because the manual didn't have any words to tell you what to do, it's all just pictures. So some of the pictures kind of just seem like gibberish, like what are they trying to portray here? Like, what am I looking at? And at the end of the day, this install isn't all that hard. It's a couple of bolts, really. Just you use your intuition to get it done, most of it done. The really only tricky part is the wiring of the actual cable, and that you have to try to kind of figure out, because again, the pictures are a little bit just gibberish. But I was able to get it done, so I'm sure that you will be able to get it done. Maybe just take a little bit longer. In terms of actually putting everything together, the biggest time saver and the biggest recommendation that I can give you is to pick up an impact rated socket for whatever bolt that you need for your rack. On the PR-5000, it is a 36mm socket. I believe on the PR-4000, it is a 24mm socket, but you can double check on that. At the time of my install, I had to buy my own socket, but right now, Rep, I've seen on the website that they actually produce their own, or at least they source their own impact rated sockets in whatever size you need, and you can buy it directly from them. Again, having an impact rated socket just allows you to attach this to an impact driver or an impact wrench, and just makes the entire process so much faster because you're using power tools rather than sitting there with a ratchet or a wrench, just hand going at it on a numerous amount of bolts. It will take you forever to put this thing together if you are not using power tools. My next piece of advice would be to install everything all together at once if possible. Again, it took me over a month to get all of the parts that I needed to actually install and build this entire thing. So I can completely understand why someone would build maybe the rack first and then the Aries 2.0 second. But if you do that, you essentially just have to take the rack apart again, at least some parts of it, to actually install the Aries 2.0, and that could be annoying. Obviously, I was able to do it, so it's not really all that big of a deal, but again, you just have to take stuff apart and put it back together. So it's just working extra hard rather than, again, like if you can do it all at once, it's just you go through the install process one after another and just get everything done all at once. Next, I want to talk about these bolts that hold the entire system together. And the thing that I want to point out is that in the manual, it'll say that potentially you might have to flip these bolts backwards to make the system, at least at that point, work. And what I mean by that is that if you look on all of my bolts, I have the bolt heads facing outwards and all of the nuts inside. And again, they say that you might potentially have to flip them inside out backwards with the nuts on the outside and the bolt heads on the inside. But in my particular case, with this 4-post rack configuration, I did not have to do that. All of my bolt heads are facing out with the nuts on the inside. Next, let's talk about the trolley and pulley system. And it might be different for your situation, but when I purchased this thing, most of these pulleys and carriage arrived with 2 pulleys, but one of them was already pre-installed and the other one was off in a box that I had to install. And the thing that I ran into with these is that because one of them were already installed, when I went and tried to install the other one, it didn't fit. I was trying to push it in, it's like, man, what is happening? So I essentially just kind of spread this thing apart and pushed it in. And when you do that, you can introduce some scratches to the trolley themselves. It's not bad or anything like that, but I'm just saying you can't scratch it up just because of the friction. And I don't know why I didn't think about it, but again, the problem is because one of the pulleys is already installed, and that's causing this system to essentially sandwich together and causing all that extra force and tension, which makes the other pulley not be able to fit in there. So to combat that, what you essentially have to do is just loosen up the other pulley and install the second pulley and sandwich everything back together properly. And to me, I just don't know why Rep just had that first pulley installed in the first place. Obviously it's to save time, but it doesn't really save time if I'm having to loosen this up just to install the other one. It doesn't make sense, just leave them all off. But again, that might be something that you may run into. The other thing that I want to point out is with the cable. And this is my first time buying a functional trainer, so it's my first time putting anything like this together. So when I did it, I essentially just ran the cable through and got it done. And you think that's it. But the problem with that is that over time, this cable, if you didn't know, can actually twist and move as you use the machine, and that causes extra tension. I don't know if you can tell, but this entire pulley system right here, over time it just starts to twist more and more, and eventually you would just have to take the entire cable apart and untangle it. Again, just redo the entire thing, which just costs extra time, and again, it's just an annoyance more than anything. But when you first install this cable, I would recommend you, for if you can, just make as big of a stretch as you can, just fully untangle it and just straighten it out, so that once you go to run all the cables through the pulleys, it gives it the best opportunity to just stay straight and not cause all this twisting, because again, I'm eventually going to have to just redo this entire thing. Next, let's talk about this shield, which, as far as I know, is purely just for cosmetics, because it really doesn't do anything else. Sure, it may protect your fingers from the plates dropping out of or something like that, but it's, for the most part, really just for aesthetics reasons. What I want to point out is that this shield is held in place by 4 bolts, 2 up top right here and 2 on the bottom, and that holds this main center section. The 2 side parts are held in place by the thicker 36mm bolts. So those are perfectly fine and easy to install. The thing that I want to point out with these bolts is that they aren't captured. So to install them, you have to hold the nut in the back while you're inserting the bolt and kind of twist them together. And that's perfectly fine and easy, but if you're like me and are trying to save as much space as possible, trying to put this rack as close to the wall as possible, literally my rack is millimeters away from my wall, so it is absolutely as close to the wall as you can get. With these bolts, the top ones are fine because you can just reach right here and do it. The problem is that at the very bottom, there's realistically no way that you can slip your arm down there unless you have really long and skinny arms. There's no way to really get all the way down there to hold everything together. And again, if you're in a similar situation, what I did was essentially glue the nut onto the shield in the back and bottom, just so that it stays in place. As I'm turning the bolt, it doesn't move or fall off. And again, that's just how I got away with it, but you can figure that out for yourself if you want to try something different, if you don't want to glue the nut onto the back of the shield. Lastly, I want to talk about the leveling feet and just leveling your rack out in general. And as you can see, I do have the leveling feet, and it is recommended by rep that you have these if you are using the 4-post configuration, because obviously with a 4-post configuration, there is higher potential for the rack to just fall forward, because this foot space, the area that it takes up, is so narrow, and as you put more weight onto the rack, or at least in the front of it, like if you were squatting really heavy or just dropping weights on this thing onto the J-cups, there is potential for the whole rack to just fall forward. So again, just having something like these front feet or the other option that Rep offers really helps to stabilize the rack and to help prevent it from falling over on you. However, if you are also getting the Aries 2.0, and in my case the 2.0 with the added weight stack upgrade, you have the benefit of having hundreds of pounds holding the back of the rack down, so you can just offset more weight up front. If you were dropping weights, like I said, on the J-cups or onto your safety pins, there's just much less of a chance for this whole thing to fall over because you have to overcome all this weight first. And with that, I do want to mention the importance of leveling out your rack. And I'm in a garage which has a gradual slope. From that wall to the garage door back there, there is a gradual downhill slope to let water drain out. And as you can see, if you look under the feet of my posts, you can see that I do have shims under there just to lift this front area up to level it out with the back feet. And again, I find that to be extremely important because before I did this and before I added the Aries 2.0 weight stack, this rack was extremely just, there is definitely a chance for it to tip over because again, it's already sitting on a downhill slope. So when I added the safety pins and I really try to push hard down on it, I can lift the entire rack up. So again, it is very important for you to try and level this out to match the back, make everything flat. And if you really can, again, just add the Aries 2.0, that'll add a lot of weight to the back to hold everything down. But if you aren't going with the 2.0, I would suggest for you to get weight horns to attach onto these posts, or at least the back posts, and add your weight plates onto it. And that would take the place of the 2.0 to really help hold everything down. And that's going to be it. Again, I just really wanted to share with you some of my thoughts in terms of the install process of the PR-5000 with the Aries 2.0, at least in the 4-post configuration. If you guys have any questions about this process or whatever it may be, just leave it down in the comments below and I'll do my best to try to help you out with your install. If you've enjoyed this video or if it has helped you out, I'd appreciate it if you can give the video a thumbs up, share it around, and again, just comment down below if you have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more content, and if you want to further support my work, consider hitting the join button down below to become a member of the channel or become a patron on Patreon. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.